I say that and then
It takes a while. Hi guys, welcome to the 8th live show for First Law Along for A Little Hatred by Joe Abercrombie. At this point, we are pretty much just going to be talking about spoilers. We'll start without spoilers for this specific book for now, but we'll be spoiling pretty much everything that comes before it because I don't think you can really talk about this book without talking about all of that stuff. So yeah, should we start off with general thoughts and star ratings, starting with, I guess, Zaf, because we're on Zaf's channel.
do you want to wait a bit more, or should we just go straight into it?
Why?
I don't know.
All right.
Okay, fine. Me feeling nervous about being on my own channel. That just tells you how out of practice I am with this. Okay, so I weirdly like this significantly more than the other bits, but I genuinely don't understand like how anyone is meant to remember all of these names. So going into this, I was like, I am forgetting all of these people. Usually I really like looking for references, but unless it's like explicit main character POV characters from the previous books, I was forgetting people left, right, and center. However, I would say this is a 4.5 for me because I found it so interesting. I found all of the characters quite likable. It's like he really took on the criticisms from the previous books and like instilled all of that into this. It felt like there was so much more going on instead of like so much talking about so much other stuff going on. I really liked seeing our characters go from the heights of what we would assume are like the top social circle situations to literally the lowest of depravity, and kind of seeing how much that industrialization is really fucking things up for people. So yeah, that's kind of my rating at the moment without going too much into it.
Fair, Deb?
I fell in the category also of being surprised how much I enjoyed this one. I think I did connect with the characters better. I definitely can relate to the idea of forgetting who was who from previous books and who was on what side. And I tried taking better notes this time, and I think that did help. I sat with the audio and the physical read to start with for the first half of the book, but this was a very strong 4-star read for me, and I'm looking forward to continuing. The most I have in this series so far.
That is very fair. Sandra?
I agree with what's being said. I really actually care for the characters after a while. But in the beginning, I was also very confused to who was who, and I used the character list in the back like a couple of times because I'm like, I don't even know who you are, because like people use sometimes titles for people instead of their names, and then they use their names instead of the titles, and I'm like, I've already forgotten who you're supposed to be. But when you got into it, then it became really good. However, I was missing a bit more of like, I guess like a epic fantasy plot, even though we know we're not getting it in Abercrombie anyway. But like, I'm still missing it, if you know what I mean. But I'm excited for the next book. And also there was like a thing that happened that obviously we're gonna speak about, where I was like, is this actually happening? But then it was actually happening, and I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was great.
Yeah. So I gave it 5 stars. It's my favorite book of the year so far. Now, bearing in mind, I have only had 3 5-stars this year, and one was Brittany's autobiography, and the other was a comic. So it's not like there's a lot of competition. Yeah, no, I did really enjoy it. I think it was Zaf that said the characters are actually likable, which is very different from the first trilogy, because I thought that even the standalones as well, but I didn't like those at all really. But the characters in the first trilogy, I liked them, but you couldn't say any of them were good or even okay people. Like, they were likable in the way that they were interesting more than anything. Whereas I feel like for our main cast of characters in this book, the worst that you can say about one of them is that she's ignorant and privileged. None of them are really actively horrible people. So I really liked having characters that I felt like I could root for. And the reason why I liked this book so much is because I felt like I could root for them, and I know how Joe Abercrombie writes, and I know how bleak this series is. I felt more emotionally invested because I didn't believe that these were the heroes or that they are going to have happy endings. So when like there was moments of high tension, like there's a particular moment of combat in this book, like I was on the edge of my seat, like wanting to know what happened and like not being sure about what was going to happen. So yeah, I feel like this is my favorite book of the year so far because of how invested I got in it, and definitely the best in the first law so far.
But isn't this trilogy like people's favorites? Like the people who like the series?
I believe so, but it has like a lot less reviews because it's still pretty new. I think the last one was published in 2019 or 2020, so it's not been out very long. This one was 17.
There's a lot of books you have to get through to get to this one if you're a read and order type of person.
This was 2019, so it only finished, I think, in 22.
Yeah, that's not long ago.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about the idea that you could essentially skip the standalones to get here? Like, obviously it adds some extra context, but what would be your thoughts on that?
I think that because this series doesn't have a plot, the plot is made up of all of the little things that happen throughout everything that we've read so far. So like, if I couldn't explain the plot of this, because part of the plot of this is because of who the King of the North is and how that happened. And part of the plot of this is like the parents of the people that we're following, like Saviene and Glockta, and how you can very clearly see her father in her. Like that is part of the plot. So it's hard because I've actually been asked recently if you could read this without reading the rest because I liked it so much. And I would say no, because it might still be enjoyable, but I don't think it would be as enjoyable.
But do you think you could read it by skipping the standalone? So you read the original trilogy, skip the standalone, like the bits in between that we read, and then go to this one?
I think you would need a lot of catching up to do because the world is vastly different to where we leave it at the end of the trilogies with the political powers and stuff. Because there's a completely different kingdom stuff in the north, and like the political equilibrium is different.
Julia said you need the heroes, and I think that makes sense. That's probably the one that's the most important, just because we are jumping into kind of this war, these battles type of setting, and that has the most tie-ins.
I'm interested to see the other two as well, because where is Monza? What was the point? Like literally, like she has barely been mentioned. She's been very slightly referenced in one other standalone, and aside from that, like she's completely irrelevant at this point.
So I kind of take the stance that I didn't actually, as much as I really enjoyed, especially Monza's revenge story. We know how much I like that, though everyone else did seem to not feel the same way I did. I kind of feel like you don't actually need to read the others as much to enjoy this. I feel like you could go from the original trilogy straight to this one, just because it feels like it's like those are the forebears, and like that's why it just works a bit more as like the descendants, and it directly carries a bit more easily. Though I do agree with the heroes estimation, and I do think that like the subtle references people make, you wouldn't really be able to pick up on those the same way. E.g., I think it's quite very early on, someone was talking about how they were like, "Oh, the future is out in the country," blah blah blah, and that's obviously like a reference to the better future and like the whole Western idea of like red country. But you would like, as people who've actually read that journey, are like, "Oh no, it really is not." Like everyone's like got one pipe dream or the other, and it's never as good as everyone estimates it to be. So it's like I thought that was interesting, like being able to see those books align with understanding those subtleties a bit more. But generally I actually didn't really feel like they were too blatantly relevant. But that's just my take.
I think that they definitely could have been novellas. I didn't need to read 3 entire novels. I feel like it could have been a series of novellas that gave you the highlights of what you needed to know for the second trilogy. And I know that some people obviously do like the standalones, but I just think there's like a vast improvement. Because my ratings for this series go 4, 5, 4, 2, 3, 3, 2, and then 5. Like everything between the two trilogies, I just don't really like that.
Because also it just feels so like disconnected to some degree, because it's just like, okay, fair enough, you have to introduce us to these new people that we care about. And I feel like in Red Country it was a bit easier to care because of Logan, but like you don't know if you care until you realize Logan is Logan, like, and that's where I'm just kind of like, it's just super disconnected feeling.
Or you just be like me and you just never realize it's Logan.
That was funny.
You could just do that instead.
I do agree is this, and I do want to see more of Monza. There's no way she isn't playing some bigger card, especially considering she refused that loan from the bank, and the bank seemed to have a bit more issues coming up in this book because it's literally about the poor and the rich, at least on the Union side of things. So I'm just so interested to see like what is Baez up to. Like he's back as well, and that's why also it feels like, okay, this is the start of the Age of Madness. Crazy things are happening everywhere.
But we can all still agree that we didn't need the short stories for the most part.
And I don't think so. To be fair, I hate short stories. The reason why I don't like short stories is because they're so short and nothing really poignant happens in a short story, and it's over so quickly. I couldn't tell you about any of the short stories apart from the last one with Logan. I don't remember them.
I like short stories when they're good short stories. I think this one just wasn't.
I remember like my one favorite thing about the other one was like that. What was it? It was like two ladies, right? And like one of them was like a brute and she was like a North woman, and the other one was like this tiny little shit. And like at the end, and then at the end they all looped in, and it was literally going through all the characters. The short stories were like with this package or something. Like my memory's so shit right now. But like I remember I loved that because it tied everything together, but that's the reason I liked it. I didn't like it like I wouldn't enjoy it in isolation because I'd just be like, what the fuck is going on? But it felt like an attempt to tie everything together. And I get for some people, it was like, oh my God, that's so cool. All the characters are together. But for some of us, if the like certain short stories didn't hit, then it's just like, I feel like I'm from the 1800s. I was reading to like, so you could hit a number of words hit, so you could get paid for more of those words, as opposed to, oh, this is really adding to my story experience. But yeah.
I don't know where to start with discussing this book. I do still think, and I meant to say this in my, like, I want to see who agrees with me as well, actually. I still think that this series, even though I give this 5 stars and I really enjoyed it, I still think that this series is all of the elements of Game of Thrones broken up, put in a bag, shaken up, and then picked out at random. Like...
Yeah, I haven't read Game of Thrones past book 1, so I can't address that.
Do we not have a war between the young lion and the great wolf? Do we not have a red wedding at the end? Like, is it not just Game of Thrones? And then obviously in the first trilogy, we still have all the fighting with the Northmen. We have the North being united. We have the guy, was he called Fenric the Feared, or was he just called the Feared? Have I made up the Fenric? Who was essentially the mountain, and then there was the red woman as well that was with the equivalent of Mance Rayder. So
this book was written.
Really very much that.
This book was written in like the height of Game of Thrones hype.
Oh my God, yeah.
True.
What's like it's even if it's re-released in what was it 2020? The Game of Thrones premiered in 2019, so he was probably writing it around like in those years.
I was like, I can make incest. But obviously he was thinking about it for a long time, because there was a reason they carried on talking about, sorry, spoiler territory now. There was a reason they carried on talking about how attractive Ardy and Jazal were, and why both of them just looked so good doing what they were doing. But that's obviously going to make their kids beautiful. And you know what happens with two hot people together and they don't know they're related?
I died.
Saviene decided not to pursue incest while Cersei did. She did decide not to pursue incest, but she does still continue to think about it. She's like, maybe though, no.
Yeah, because like she wants to. She just thinks it's wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
If
I died.
If Ardy was still alive, I don't think she would have as many qualms. Like if there was no one who knew, like if her parents weren't around, then
she wouldn't know.
To be fair, we still
no. I'm saying she would
going to end in a place of incest. I still feel like she's too practical to go down that route. But I mean, we'll see. It's funny because I was texting Zaf and I said like something from our prediction board has come true. And she was like, "Oh my God, incest! Ha ha ha! Don't tell me that I'm wrong." And I was like, "No, it is actually incest."
I was like, "There's one thing we were solid about, and that was it." And I'm just like, "Of course." And it's just like, fair enough, I guess.
But that scene where it happened, like I started reading it. Like the very first, like the first scene where you figure out it's happening, and I was like, "This is sex," and I was reading it, and I was like, "Oh no, it's not sex." And then I was like, is it sex though? And then I carried on. I was like, no, yeah, no, it is.
Oh, sorry. I think there's a misunderstanding. Sorry. What I meant was if her parents and his parents and anyone who could have known, like obviously, like if anyone who could have known that they're related is not alive anymore, like what stops her from pursuing it is what I'm trying to get at. Not say like obviously she knows, that's why she stopped in the first place.
I know, but like I just feel like, do you not think that she's too much of a sensible person for that?
She definitely is, and I think in the end of the day, she's going to go for whatever is going to make the best investment for her.
She's not like money grabbing or power grabbing. She doesn't have anything really to gain by being the queen, like a lot of people would have, which I feel like will stop her. But then,
are we noticing a theme though? The powerful independent women have had some kind of incestuous past, but like they did it with Monza, and they're doing it again with her, and I'm just like, that's interesting. You did it twice now. Two bad bitches thriving in industry.
Oh yeah, Nikki said, honestly, they're still the best couple he's written, and I'm like, you know what? I was digging it, even though I knew, and I was like, oh, I hate this because I know where it's going to go. But I am actually surprised that this came to light in this book. I expected it to go a lot longer before it came to the forefront.
What, like Danny and John?
I'm hoping that she's not pregnant. Because they had that scene after, is it Baalbek? Is that the place where they were? Where she said like she'd been so careful about like pregnancy and stuff before, and she just didn't care anymore. And I'm like, oh, this might not bode well.
Hope she's pregnant. I want drama.
The pregnancy trope is not a favorite. So.
Oh, Rachel forgot they were late. Oh no.
Yeah, because I was a bit unsure. I was like, are they related? Or am I remembering this wrong? Because like clearly I can't remember anything anyway. And then I was like, they are related, right? But then they kept having sex, and I was like, are they related? and then she said they were related, and I was like, oh my god! And then I lost my shit.
Yep, it was intense. What do we think about our other couple of this book, which is Ricky and Leo?
Leo's
tempestuous, but it's hard to follow her.
One at a time, guys. One at a time.
Sorry.
No, I just said that Leo is a mommy boy.
Oh, I love Leo. Leave Leo alone.
No, I just like he liked being bossed around like his mother.
Oh yeah, no, he did realize that. Yeah, he did realize.
And I was like, "You go, dude." That was That's when I keep my attention up.
Finnery's a bad bitch as well, so you know what? Fair enough. But I also like the way that he was portrayed, in the sense of like, one thing I found really, really interesting was his relationship. It felt like to his own masculinity, and like how he was using seeing the guys and how they responded around him as to like decide what he should be. And it felt like so much of the way he saw himself was a performance, which to me was like interestingly similar to like Giselle. Like Giselle wanted to be all this extra stuff, which also so basically what I'm trying to get at is I feel like there's some interesting parallel and conversation between you have Giselle and then you have Leo and then you have also, and like the way that they both like act feels like paradigms of the way Giselle behaved, in the sense that also has all this power. We just didn't have the vindication or the perseverance or anything to really just do the thing. And obviously we see a lot of growth in significantly more growth than Giselle in this book. But for Leo, it was kind of like he's super, super strong. He just does the thing, but he doesn't think. He doesn't consider any kind of consequences, but he also doesn't really have the same level of rank. So I don't know. I just found that kind of really, really interesting. But I really like Ricky. I don't know how to say her name. Reich, whatever.
Well, she said it rhymes with something. Ricka. No, she said it rhymes with pricker or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think it's Ricka.
Yeah, but, she's queen. I like her.
Yeah,
even if she shuts herself.
Is it not a Nordic name though? Like I would say Rikke, but that's just me.
Yeah, maybe that would make sense
because they're from the north. But
you can say her name from now on, because we're not.
But I don't know where he takes his name from. But like I know people in real life that has a name, and that's how we say it here.
Oh, okay.
I do agree with this. I don't think that I felt it. To a degree, it felt like it was convenience for Leo, and like he wanted something cool. Like he saw other men wanted her. He saw she's got this really cool power, and like it kind of fell into his ego a little bit, and that's why where it was coming from with him, as opposed to Saviene. And also they are both like at the highest echelons of society, and Saviene obviously wanted a lot of power initially, and she clearly still has some power wanting in her, and also was like, oh, this girl has everything else that I could possibly need to be a better person. But yeah,
I think that he did genuinely like her because he made the point like that he's not attracted to girls normally, which I'm interested to see what that means about his sexuality. Like, what do you mean? Like, are you not interested? Like, is he demi? Because he keeps saying that, like, oh, like they're not interested. Like she is. Like he doesn't enjoy talking to them or hanging out with them. Oh,
is this true?
he's reading be fulfilled. It is. But Giselle also does the same. Giselle also has Adolin energy. Like I am a sucker.
Who's Adolin?
Stormlight Archive.
Oh god, I need to read that series.
He's essentially like he does complete the arc that like Giselle doesn't. So he starts off like Giselle, but then he actually like turns into a hero and like a main character throughout the story. But yeah, like I think that he was genuinely interested in her, but I just don't feel like because he has been coddled somewhat by his mother and she has been coddled somewhat by her father, and I just don't feel like they're emotionally responsible enough to have like a proper relationship.
No, I definitely see that.
I feel like Rika and Leo both read younger, just in the sense that they felt very impetuous. They felt very heightened emotion. And like, I didn't expect it necessarily to be a long-term thing because it seemed like something that would burn out.
Do you think that could also be like North society though? I feel like to a degree, because they can be quite like they talk in their body language as opposed to normal language, like educational, that kind of stuff that would have been valued a bit more in the union. So they kind of grow differently. But I see what you mean.
I feel like they were like
the union. Nikki said that the union is homophobic, and I feel like that's true. But like I don't know, because like like he never said anything about men that would make me believe that he does like men, and he does like Ricky. So what does Rika? How he talked about one of his friends really early on to me was like, that's really interesting. Like he was talking about how all of his friends were attractive in different ways, but there was one he carried on talking about. It started with a J. And then that guy like turns to him and then he like immediately stops talking about how attractive he is, etc. And I was just like, that was really interesting because you stuck on that guy for a really long time and you're clearly looking at him for him to like long enough for him to then look back at you. So to me, that kind of made me feel like he was more so demisexual and he didn't really sit within like a specific desire of a specific gender, I think. But he's obviously really, really concerned about how he's seen by others. He does get really defensive when I think she makes a joke, doesn't she, about how his friends behave when they're together, and like insinuates that it looks gay even though it's not gay. It's just lad being lad.
Durand, this is who I meant. This is the one that I think he has a crush on 100%.
He's the one who confused me when you were saying that names were confusing you and you couldn't remember who was who. He confused me the most because isn't Durand the guy, the Master Maker, or related to the Master Maker in some way? And this guy's been given his name. I feel like
there was something about that. Yeah, I can't remember.
Let's see if I can. I don't want spoilers.
This is the pain of like referencing, because how else do you find out? And it's not like they're gonna state, oh, these are all the previous. Oh, Juvens. That's what Julia said.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Fair. At least I wasn't imagining it.
There should only be one name each in each letter to make it less confusing.
Literally. I do agree with this comment by Rachel because it was, but I also feel like it was a level of comfortability which made him feel like it was okay with Rika. Like, oh, or Rika. Like, oh, he's familiar to her. They've been childhood friends. It's like not as hard as like a completely new woman he can't really communicate with.
I thought it was just because he was like kind of young and inexperienced, because it seemed like when he was together with Rikke, it was like kind of because they had been friends like when they were young, and then like they saw each other again. It was like, yeah, let's bang, you know.
But aren't they all around the same age roughly? Like
I find this book really hard to remember that they're all in the 20s and not teenagers.
Yeah.
I felt like they were like 17, 19.
Yeah,
Ish.
and they're all like
Yeah.
mid-20s, and like Leo has a beard, and I'm like, no, he doesn't. He's a happy baby.
Do you remember that Robin Hobb series we were reading with the dragons? The one,
Yeah, the Rain Wild Chronicles.
right? Yeah. So you know how like everyone's basically a fucking teenager, even and the dragons are super petulant, acting like teenagers. This is what it felt like to me because I was just like, how does this teenager have a business? How is this teenager potentially the prince? How is this teenager 27? Like.
Yeah.
I feel like I was also not necessarily more forgiving of them, but I liked them a little bit more because I did feel like they read a little bit younger because I didn't have the expectations that I had of actual adults, even though they are all actual adults. I don't think Saviene is as bad. Also reads younger because of privilege. And then it's Rika and Leo that seem really young, even though I do think they are like around mid-20s, like 24-ish maybe.
I completely agree with you, and I think it's definitely like I do think it's like that North they teach them more about combat than they do about like maturity and emotion, like mentality changing stuff. And also again because he's so privileged and just doing way too many drugs, like I think that must have affected his development in some way because like when his mom calls him out, like you've literally been like doing this for 10 years. It's not cute anymore, baby. This is not a good look.
I feel like also we think of them as younger because we know they're kids to the other characters we had. So we think of them, they're the kids, even though they're grown up. But in my head, they're still the kids.
Speaking of kids, how do we feel about Stow and Nightfall? The Great Wolf. I cannot get a read on him. Like, I obviously know that he's, like, unhinged, but, like, I don't know what to expect from him.
He's giving Ramsay Bolton.
I mean, yeah.
Like, using your allegory that a bunch of elements of Game of Thrones were shoved into a bag and then, like...
I mean, that scene at the end is literally, like, the Red Wedding. It's just not a wedding. But it's
I feel like we could just take every character in this book and make that character to a Game of Thrones.
They all have XPs of Game of Thrones characters.
Literally. Do you believe that he has agreed to a truce with Leo? Do you think that he intends to at least keep a truce and may backstab him because he's not a reliable person? Or do you think he just doesn't intend to have one at all?
This is what's one in a trilogy. It can't be too easy. We've got
the one that Leo beat in the duel.
Yeah.
And left alive, which was a choice.
Yeah, that was.
I just kill him. No.
I think it kind of links back to the visions that Rika has, and like I don't know if they're necessarily changing each time, but the first one still like the loop, right? Of like the son gets eaten by the wolf, and then the wolf gets eaten by the lion, blah 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 blah. And then the second one about like the wolf and the lion having a duel, and like it seems like the wolf is going to win, but then the lion wins.
I've just had an epiphany.
And that isn't that literally a reference to the fight that they have at the end. And so Leo does technically win. But I'm curious because does that like if Leo is not the son, and like I think the son is meant to be the union, right? And then the wolf is meant to be yeah, exactly. And then if Leo is quite literally the lion, who was it who kills the lion? Was it a sheep or something?
The lamb is also. That's the epiphany that I've just had. Because Patricia said earlier, the part where they revealed who the lamb is went over my head. I have no clue who they were talking about. And I just like, I read it and I was like, I don't know what that's referencing. But then you just said that the lamb is part of that and the lamb is also. Because they're mocking him at the end during the parade and they keep calling him the young lamb or something because Leo's the young lion.
So in what way is he going to beat out Leo? But then again, Orso's good at fighting. He just doesn't do
I was going to say maybe because of Saviene, but Savine's not actually interested in Leo. Apart from
and then ultimately the owl ate the lamb.
And who is the owl?
So who's the owl? Baez?
Saviene. She comes out on top of everyone.
I like that.
Logan as well is also a lamb. But why would Logan kill Leo? I mean,
I do like this. The owl, I think, is Rika or some other wizard. And the reason I like this is because owls can turn 360. Like, they can always see different ways. And considering her power literally could work both in the past and the future, that literally is that like aligns. And like, I think owls always do have that kind of magical element to them. So I don't know. I see that.
And
as
they're
well.
associated with knowledge and wisdom, which having that long sight fits in with that. So that's a good theory.
I honestly,
did-
maybe they should just become gay. Like the two girls should just.
In game. I
Everyone
did
should
like
just be
that we
gay.
got good female characters in here, and I felt like he did a better job of portraying women in here 100%. That impressed me. And even, I mean, that's where the book opens, is with women, which was kind of surprising.
I also think that the humor was a little bit better in this one as well. Like, it was actually funny.
Yeah, I actually thought some parts were funny too. But I remember in the first live shows you guys had, people were like, wait until the later books you get better female characters then. Because you guys were talking about how they weren't great then. So I also agree that they're much better now. But
And
it
I
is
think
sad that we had to read 7 books to get there.
And like,
I'm not mad about no more squelching. Yeah, I actually read the sex scenes in this one. They weren't awful. They weren't amazing, but they weren't awful.
It was too many.
There was quite a lot.
It was a lot. Like, every chapter ended on a sex scene. I'm like, what's going on right now?
well, I think it's really because really it's about, well, it feels like it's mainly about 4 characters, and they're all
There is
kind of
also there's
pieces.
Broad as well as one of the main perspectives.
Mhm.
But
I'm
he's,
still
like,
looking as the 4.
different to the rest. That I
Yeah.
don't know how much of a. I feel like he has to be relevant because he gets a lot of page time in this one, but I don't understand his relevance in the bigger picture at this point, aside from to play like the downtrodden. Because it feels like it should be his daughter, not him.
But now, since everyone has had sex with each other, like the guys and the girls, now the girls and the guys should have sex with each other. So everyone has had sex with each other.
I agree with this.
That's good. You agree with me?
I think it would solve lots of problems as well.
I think it would. I agree completely.
It should just end in a quadruple. Quadruple? I don't even know how to say it.
Quadruple.
You got what I meant. Yes.
A foursome. There we go.
No, but when it's a relationship,
Yes.
a quad.
At that point, after 3, isn't that just polyamory? Just like as an umbrella term.
Well, what if they're 4 people who are?
But they're
exclusive to
4
each other?
people, but they're not with other people. So that is.
Okay.
I have to say, it's the volume of good women, like going off from Deb's point, that we're getting in this book already, which is like more impressive, because I feel I loved Monza from the start. I liked Shy. I loved Ardy, even though she was a freaking idiot. And like we would just get hints of like these cool women, but they were like really short and few and far between. And they always there was always some kind of, it felt like whenever they were in some kind of like sexual situation, it was like made more of a spectacle. But like, oh, she doesn't really give a fuck about sex. She's so cool. Oh, she's giving herself to him. She really loves him. Like it always felt like there was like a bit more of a thing that's being said about when the women would like doing up, going out, getting up stuff. But in this one, I didn't feel like it as much, and I kind of like that. Obviously, apart from the incest, because that was meant to be like, oh my god, shocking. They don't know. But other than that, I kind of like the normalization of just women being normal and key players in all kinds of spheres. Though obviously the sexual violence was still, or the threats of sexual violence was still like ever present, and it was like horrible. I did still appreciate that we saw more to it, like more gradients of how that could fit in and how women fit into the society, as opposed to here's one cool badass lady, the rest of them have to be saved.
I think it's an indication of the times advancing as well, because they
Yeah.
do make the point, like Saviene makes the point of how she is like a pioneer as a woman, because women still aren't like considered like breadwinners or like business owners or anything like that in this world yet.
Yeah, with Saviene, we had her being a businesswoman, but then also she had to get help to get dressed and tighten her corset. And so, like, she was still in the trappings of being a woman and having to be on display.
She doesn't want it, but then she has to wear wigs in public because it's not acceptable.
Yeah.
She's just such a bad bitch.
she's one of the characters I actually really liked her starting off, but she's actually really disappointed me towards the end, because I feel like earlier I said like the characters are all likable, and I wouldn't say that any of them are truly horrible. Like they could all be good people at some point. Like the worst flaw that any of them has, I would say, is Savine's ignorance to start off with, and her privilege. But then she gets into a position where her ignorance is challenged, and she doesn't come out of that having learned anything. She carries on trying to reinforce like the divide between rich and poor, instead of like seeing how other people live and being like, okay, like I'm contributing to this and I can help. And I think that Broad in the story is going to really see that, and I think that that's going to be really bad for Saviene, because he is trying to change his life and she's just put him into this role that he's desperately trying to escape from.
Do you think that similarly to Glockter, she's going to have to fall really hard to finally change in some way? Because well, Glockter just became cruel, you know what I mean, but he still found a new way to find his place in the world. So I'm kind of curious if like she has to go through some massive financial issue or something like that for her to really get in check. And you would think that that entire experience of like running away and being disgusting and all that stuff would have instilled some level of fear and panic, but also understanding the level of hysteria and like the horrible environment that the people that work for her have to live in, that she would actually like take that on, but she didn't.
Do you think that, going off what you've just said, do you think that this is the horrible thing that happens to her, and like Glockter, it makes her worse, not better?
I think she's too stupid to actually see it for what it is at the moment.
Because at the beginning, Glockter as well, like his biggest flaw is ignorance and privilege. And then this horrible thing happens to him, and instead of becoming a better person, he becomes worse. Like he's a torturer, he's cruel, like he's always only in it for himself and will always save his own skin. And Saviene is pretty much doing the exact same thing. Like she is, I would say that she's worse, because now she feels a need to retaliate because of the like fear that she now has because of the trauma that she suffered, as opposed to realizing that this thing that happened is actually something that she's partially responsible for, and that she actually has the ability to make sure that it doesn't happen again by improving working conditions.
Yeah, I agree. Because at the beginning, when she saw the conditions that these kids were in and working, it really sounded like she was going to try to push for reform with that. And if this revolt hadn't chased her off, if she hadn't been through all of that, I felt like she would have gone in a more positive direction than she wound up.
Yeah. I feel so bad for the girl who was in her carriage.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, the way that she was behaving, I didn't feel that bad for.
Like, she's an idiot, but I also don't feel like she...
I also like how Saviene came up to the carriage, and the girl in the carriage was going, "Go away, shoo, peasant." And Saviene saw the other people coming to the carriage and was like, "All right, see you later." Left.
Get fucked.
I actually really enjoyed that.
But
did you see like the...
What do we think that her maid is up to, actually, Zori? Because I don't trust her.
I liked their
I'm
friendship.
just gonna get my brothers and I'll be back.
But I liked her friendship.
I do, but just the way that she conveniently disappeared when this thing was happening, when there's a lot of racism in, and it's a lot of, I know that the union is like UK coded, but this racism specifically also feels very UK coded.
The immigrants.
It's like, to give an example, like I went to the bathroom yesterday and my bathroom window was open and next door were drunk in the garden, and I heard the woman next door start a sentence with, "I'm not a racist person, but," and I was like, okay. And then just like went back downstairs. So like,
there's no good ending to that sentence.
Yeah, no, it's like
unless it's I'm an anti-racist, then you are not.
But yeah, like I wonder if the racism and the poverty are going to kind of like join forces. And also, like, do we believe that the conflict with the South, well, we obviously believe that the Prophet's still around, like he hasn't just disappeared forever. And I'm wondering if Zori has something to do with that.
I think that if she's gonna change. If we're gonna see Saviene change, it might have to be something closer to home. And even though Zuri is essentially someone that she's paid, I feel like because of that good chemistry that they had together, that understanding, she just knew how to respond. She just knew how to, like, she was sassy when she needed to be. She was like, she had a lot of humility when she needed to be. And I just thought that maybe if something happens to her, or if she really comes out like needing help in some way, that might change her perspective.
I do think that it was interesting that she specifically said, I think it was to Broad, or like Broad's daughter, when they said about her being friends, and she was like, yeah, but I'm paid, and like I don't forget that.
Yeah.
So like I think that while Saviene maybe considers her a friend, I'm not sure that Zuri considers Saviene to be a friend.
I see this.
It reminded me of the girl with the bandages that's Nita. But I can't remember what happened, but it's not her.
No. I saw that. I think like I could see the idea of her potentially being an East, because she's from a different place, right? And there's like a bunch of refugees. The Gurkish, are they?
I think so, because that's what caused the influx of refugees, right?
Yeah.
That's the South.
I wonder if they're going to do more of a thing where they misplace the hatred of the upper class onto refugees or some bullshit like that.
I know Leo is definitely because he was talking to Orso, wasn't he? How weird is it that Orso is like a decent guy, kind of? Like he wanted to save the people, he didn't want to kill them. Like he does believe that the poor are being oppressed. Like he is all for the refugees coming and like seeking refuge. And like he actually defends all of these things like in conversation, but obviously like as on the flip side of that, like I just can't take him seriously.
I'm completely and utterly on the side of the breakers and burners. I do agree that I don't, obviously, like using violence isn't necessarily the best form of protest, but sometimes you have to use the language of the oppressor, and two, I just think it's like such an annoying disconnect, because it's like so early on as well, we just see also being like, I could stop this, but I'm gonna get high. Like, girl, you're so close. What are you doing? Please, for the love of God. And then it's just like after that, it then becomes ego opportunities. It's like, oh, I could like, I'm actually gonna prove myself. I'm actually gonna sit in my role. Oh no, Saviene, by my actual position and making decisions that will actually help the greater world and greater good, I need to go help my fucking sister who I've been fucking, but yeah, whatever.
I think that he has been done a disservice by the fact that he is his father's son. Because when Giselle became king, it essentially just brought out the worst in him. Any growth or character development that he'd had up until that point, like he pretty much just gave up when he became king. So also has been raised knowing that the royalty have no power. And because of that, while he can see clearly, he doesn't bother to try because he knows that he has no power. And that is going to be his downfall, because the people like the burners and the breakers, like they don't know that he actually supports them. Like they don't know that he actually like agrees with a lot of their points. And because of that, like as we saw in the parade, like I feel like he could be taken down by like the general public.
Unless he starts making some changes. And that's why
don't, because the end of this book really upset me. And I felt like it was as well, because the last line of this book, when I was checking how many pages it is, the last line is "Long live the king," and I was like, great. And then when we had that last do you know the scene with Stowe and Nightfall that was just before that, I was hoping that it was Calder or Scale that died, and I mean Scale did die, so I was like, okay, cool. And then it changed scenes, and I was like, no, I just oh, Baez is 100% responsible for Giselle's death, but the question is why.
Yeah, why kill him now?
This book.
Because he's back. He doesn't need a puppet anymore. He can use the sun.
But Giselle's such a good puppet.
Yeah, why disrupt what is already good?
But like also has all of these ideas that Baez is going to have to beat out of him, and because Giselle has a son that is of age, it's not like also is like 5, so Bazal, who's Bazal? So Baez can like assume control.
Ship name.
like a region until he comes of age. Also is just going to take the throne, and also just the fear in him when he realized, like when he came to that realization, was also great.
Maybe he figures if
How-
he keeps feeding him enough drugs, he can control him into doing anything.
I think people are going to carry on underestimating also, and that's why he's going to come out on top in some way.
I
Because
feel like he's
he
all
might
gonna
just,
end to shit.
huh?
Everything is gonna go to shit.
Oh,
Yeah.
150%. It's the age of madness. That's the whole point. But I feel like he's gonna kind of actually like cut back on the drugs, cut back on his other decisions and stuff like that, and actually amend himself as a person. But and maybe this actually could tie into why Baez might actually be the owl. Simply because Baez would only come back if it was like the time that he felt was ripe enough for certain fruits that he laid down to actually bear trees that he laid down to bear fruit. I'm so good at English. And so like that's why he's come back when he has now. And so it's like, oh, it finally feels like maybe everyone will finally align with also in his vision and stuff like that. And then Baez is something that kind of like undermines him and his entire vision to be the person who comes out on top. But in the end of the day, I hope it turns into a situation where Baez really underestimates the common people, because a lot of the time we're talking about people who have a lot of power, whether it is like this person's basically a jarl, this person is the king, this person is a politico, but he doesn't value what actual people who come together can do. And obviously Glocta's whole thing has always been like stopping any kind of revolution from happening, and he doesn't like Baez. So I'm very curious as to that initial dislike and how it could kind of play in, and maybe even his daughter being the tool that in the end of the day like stops whatever the fuck Baez's regime is. That's where my brain goes. But then it's like, how does that tie into Monza? Monza has to do something. There's no way that they're gonna have like this lady who's hella rich and has hella territory and she's not doing anything with it.
There's no way that, well, I mean, a lot of things about this series are pretty pointless, but there's no way that he wrote an entire book about her seizing political power in one of the only countries in the world that we haven't really spent any time in for it to mean nothing, when the main plot of this whole thing is war.
I was gonna say, are you sure? Are you sure? I'm not 100% sure about this.
I do think that Baez is the owl, but the reason that I think that is because the cycle, like the chain, ends with Baez, and I expect Baez to be the person who comes out on top at the end.
So you think that
But
he
I
will
don't
still
like
win?
him.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the point. You're not
But I
supposed
don't
to.
like him. I don't want him to win. Like, no one's going to reread your book series if they don't like the winner. It's not about the journey, okay? No one likes the journey in this one.
But it's grimdark. The point is no hope. The point is no point.
Like you think Saviene is gonna end up on top? That will be too fun. It's gonna be Baez probably.
Who is it that
I
eats
want
the sun?
Baez, and then Baez gets stabbed in the throat. Sorry, carry on.
Is it the wolf that eats the sun?
Huh?
Is it the wolf that eats the sun?
Yes, the wolf eats the sun, the lion eats the wolf, the lamb eats the lion. How the fuck does that work?
Well, that's why I got confused, and then it's only because we've come back around to this after potentially also is the lamb that it's actually Kling. But so my prediction now is that Star and Nightfall is going to either start a war with the Union, or the Leo and Star are going to team up with the people that are against Orso, who are trying to corrupt Leo at the minute, and they're going to destroy the Union, and then Leo is going to betray Star and Nightfall, and then Orso is going to kill Leo because of him destroying the Union and like trying to overthrow him, and then Baez wins.
Okay, can you write me a summary later so I remember you said this?
I'll try. Somebody else will remember.
To the question of how does a lamb eat a predator, the only way that happens is if somebody feeds that predator to him, which also kind of fits with Orso being a lamb, possibly Baez controlling things and helping take down a bigger power because he's controlling things.
But doesn't Baez need Orso though? Like he's established this kingdom royalty thing. If he kills him, then he doesn't have a pawn anymore on the throne.
He needs him until Orso gets a backbone and stands up to him, and then potentially that
Orso just needs to. That's why Saviene is pregnant, and they get married and have a baby.
Zafio muted.
I'm really bright. My dumbass drinking 4% alcohol cider already can't operate. Who thought this was a bright idea? Me, apparently. I wouldn't like that to happen. I would like Saviene to not be having what you said was. And I forgot my point now because I'm an idiot. I'm going to stop talking.
Emily, I do think that he has had the feedback of everyone being like, okay, this is cool and this is interesting, but I don't give a fuck. And he's changed it, so now he's like, okay, well, I'm going to make you give a fuck, so then you care more. Because that was what the big difference in this book was for me. The reason why I liked it so much is because I actually felt invested, and because I know that there's real consequences in this world. Like, I was like, the duel between Stowe Nightfall and Leo, like, I was on the edge of my seat because I didn't want Leo to die. Like, he's my favorite, but like, I knew that Ricka's premonition said that he wasn't going to. But then, for all intents and purposes, like, the Great Wolf was the better swordsman, and he had him like really backed up to the wall. And obviously, he's also a terrible person, so you don't want him to win. But it really felt like he was gonna. And because it's Joe Abercrombie, like, even though her prediction said that Leo was gonna win, like, you don't know that that's actually gonna happen because it's Joe Abercrombie. Like, it was intense.
Yeah, and
Quick
also,
question.
like, even though he said he was going to win, he could have won, but like with a huge cost. For example, he could have lost both his legs. For example, like it would have been.
They could have both died.
Yeah, for example, but he could have still won. Like it could have. Yeah.
I wondered if it was more the kingdoms than the individual characters too. Like Leo's people could have ultimately won, even if he got killed because they rallied over his death or something.
That's fair. I kind of maybe this is a silly point. So it's not even the freaking premonition. I can't think of a single duel where the person we wanted to win didn't win in all of Joe Abercrombie's books.
True, but isn't that because it's only really Logan fighting?
Yeah, but that's also why I kind of like, I just don't, that's why I'm just like, the duel means, oh no, it's another duel. Wow.
Something
I'm
else
so
I
scared.
still really loved about this is how everyone's like, yeah, on all sides, they're all like, well, Logan did this. Like,
I love that they still praise my king. I know he's alive out there somewhere, probably turned into a demon wolfman, fuck knows. King. But yeah, sorry, now I remember what I was going to say earlier. So my thought process is when he kind of, like, as you said, like, if also then gets a backbone and actually starts doing things, and that's when Byars is going to play his winning piece. I then wonder, is he going to then try and use, like, oh, we've gone past the need of a monarchy, we need a democracy now, and that's what's going to come in and undermine also at the end, because it's like he could then decide to make correct moves, but what are people going to want more of? And I think it goes into what happens in the very beginning with the trial, where one of the people who was going to get murdered was basically saying that we need to have people from all kinds of walks of life and not just nobles in the council who are just making these big decisions for everyone. There's already this talk of democracy and like and I'm not gonna lie, to me it reminds me of ancient Roman history. This is my Roman Empire, like where things are kind of shifting away, and I feel like it's going to turn into more elected officials. You're going to have consuls, you're going to have like a group of people, and they're all going to gather, and they're going to be all different kinds of intellectuals and whatnot. But then that also turns into a grander amount of education. We're also hearing about a lot of more people getting ill. So I'm wondering if that's also going to play a plot, because when you think about real life history and like how much happened in England after industrialization, like how many people were dying en masse because of how poor the health system was, I wonder if there's going to be some kind of mirroring in that, and maybe Byaz has a cure, or there's some other kind of magical revolution in that kind of way.
I'm also interested to see where this is going, based on the fact that this is mirroring, on an accelerated scale, it's mirroring like real, what's the word? Progression. Like we had an industrial age that was like this. One of the things that I didn't love about this is that some elements of it felt very Victorian. And I don't like Victorian literature. Like, it's just not a period of time I care that much about. So we had like the little kid burning in the chimney, which I just remembered that scene happened, and that was grim. Also, all of the people with like long-term health conditions and lung conditions because of the factory conditions, the fact that the factories are springing up everywhere. Because as well as that, we don't know that this is the end of the First Law universe. We just know that this is all that he's written so far. And like I said, the most recent one I think was published in 2022, 2023. So it could potentially continue. Oh god, yeah, the melted child in the chimney was not it.
Well, why is there always a thing in fantasy that they always go from monarchy to democracy? I can't even say the word democracy. Like this always a thing.
Because the monarchy is always going to be like the old, you know, it goes into bloodlines. It goes into essentially the old way of succession. Because nowadays most countries are democracies, or they're a mix of, you have like your political working class people, and then you have your, like, for example, like in Japan, they have a king and a queen and a royal family, but it's similar to England. They don't really have power the same way their actual political officials do.
I mean, and we also have monarchy here in Norway, and I like fuck the monarchy in real life, but in books I kind of like it.
Yeah,
I like
bougie and glam. Like, why can't we have a fantasy series about a really good monarchy that are like,
like an actual good monarchy that doesn't need to be removed?
I have a series for you. It's but instead of a monarchy, it's actually a fucking fake court. I'm kidding. Becca's gonna fucking stab me if I even say it.
You know what? Actually, hearing what you've just said, yeah, no, there are series like that, and I have read them.
Which ones?
Throne of Glass. Akatar.
Yeah. Oh, technically, if we're talking about like, but those are technically fake courts, but they operate quite similarly, right? Because that, like, there's just so many of them, and I think that's another reason why people really like fake courts, because it's another. Now I'm going on a separate freaking thing, Jiggy, but essentially because it's so much further from our current reality, where we do have kings and queens. So many people in so many parts of the world are being taxed so fucking heavily. There's such an irritation with the rich and their egregious displays of wealth. And sure, we love the illusions of rich people, but we hate the consequences of having to bear the brunt of their taxes. And that's why, again, democracy becomes more and more appealing. It only really works if you have a leader that people actually want. But the problem is, none of these motherfuckers want to be leaders people actually want, and also has the option to be. And I'm really hoping he steps up. And just doesn't get eaten.
But it's like now in a lot of countries we have a royal family and like a prime minister is the word. So now we just get double taxed to pay both of them, instead of just one of them.
That's facts.
Because you said, so I'm like, okay, so can we just have one then?
Honestly, I wish all the people. I wish there was a choice in this country that if you are someone who feels so strongly about the monarchy and our culture, okay, so you can pay those taxes for them, and the rest of us who don't really care, we don't have to. And then I bet you any money the people who actually have the choice will be like, well, that's just more taxes for me. I don't want to do all of that. And then like they're not going to want to pay those taxes either. And then we won't have monarchy. And then we won't have tourism from the monarchy. Does it really fuck about though? Anyway, separate conversation.
No, I mean, it is very relevant. We also have royal family. I'm like, I mean, they seem like nice people, but why? What do they do?
The Elizabeth line is one of the best things Queen Elizabeth has left behind. I know, she's so good. And whenever there's like, the Elizabeth line is a new tube line that exists in the UK. So I frequent her. She's so good, and she's so new, and we love her.
You can keep the Elizabeth line, but you don't get to keep your monarchy.
Well, she's already gone. Rest in peace. But
I know. I did know that. I swear. This time I knew.
Oh, it was a while ago at this point. But yeah.
Either way, I just don't like. Can you call it a trope? I don't like it when they always like need to move away from monarchy, because I personally really enjoy them in fantasy book. I think they're really fun.
That point right there, fantasy, right? And on top of it, the monarchy needs to actually mean something. And this is one of my biggest fucking gripes with stories that have monarchies that don't mean anything. And this is what I liked about Game of Thrones. Being in the Targaryen family means something. It means something to being a dragon rider. It means something from a magical aspect. Like there's actually something in that bloodline and lineage which commands respect, because they have something that other people can't do. And that's why, in turn, so many people choose to follow them. What the fuck is the difference between a lot of these people and some sister fuckers or whatever the fuck? Like a lot of these people were fucking their cousins in the past. Like what is the point? Like there's no real attribute to having to pay so much for these morally decrepit people, and that's so what it's so becomes so frustrating when there's no proper magical system involved. Not proper, but I respect the kind of fantasy that Joe is going for, but it feels just so weak to have a monarchy, and this is why we're not going to have that. So if you have something where like there's a magic system, the monarchy is tied to some kind of magic, fully respect it. And again, that's going back to, and I can't believe I'm using this comparison. I can't believe it always comes back to Sarah J. Maas. But like the fact of the matter is, I hate myself before anyone continues. You know that I hate myself. The courts actually have magic. Like the people who work at the courts actually have magic of that court. That's why people will choose to follow them, as opposed to some random motherfuckers me like, we don't have to follow Reese. Like he's just gonna fucking make you missed. Like that has leverage, that has power. What the fuck does like some random motherfucker
Well,
I
as another example that is not sort of glass, you could think about like Miss Sport, for example, like the like the nobles there were the powerful and people in power because they were the Mistborn, like they, and then like they mixed in with a ska and all that, but like yeah, so like they were different in a way.
You kind of just made me have another epiphany, because I think that the royalty at the time that it was instated, or the kind of extent that it's been upheld to in the series, is because the people needed the monarchy. Like the people needed a royal family. And I think potentially the reason why Baez has killed Jazal is because the people don't need a royal family anymore. So to get rid of them, it's easy. Like if Jazal dies, well, they have no allegiance to us, so actually they really don't like him. So if they're ever going to overturn the monarchy, it's going to be now, when the person who's going to be the king is the one that they can't stand. He's like a paragon of everything they're fighting against right now. So that could have been the reason why Baez killed Jazal.
100%.
Because he's trying to instigate
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
You're anti-ball.
I'm not really. I just thought it would be funny.
You've been too much
Actually,
on one side of you.
Two of my best friends in real are bald, and we always speak about how bald people are always evil in books and shows.
Why?
And now every time we see a bald person on TV, we're like, "It's you! You're the egg!"
To be honest, as someone who like has a massive forehead and way too much testosterone, I felt that. I'm insulting myself. I might go bald one day. Who knows?
Just get a bangs like me.
It's
A
true.
fringe.
It's a big forehead.
I'm
helps with the
tempted to.
forehead.
I'm gonna get some. I think.
I
The
feel
Avatar
like
is bald.
I feel like Saf is
Good
like
point.
the funniest person I now know. Like you're wild, and your impressions on
Oh,
point
Can we
always.
talk about how this was only 4% alcohol, and that's why I'm being this?
No, you were
Like,
you
I'm
were
such a
wild
lightweight.
before. You were wild before.
Oh,
I've been
wild.
drinking almost every single one of these. That's how I get through them.
Please.
Don't drink alcohol, kids.
Not
Not white
you have to
pearl.
be on a live show.
Just
So
to
yeah,
get
no.
through these live shows.
Who haven't
But
we
yeah.
covered? What haven't we covered?
I like Clover.
I have forgotten who Clover is. Oh, Clover's the... Oh, wonderful! Why you reminded me of these horrible
I'm
things?
so sorry, but also I love Clover. Like, there's something about him that's
Why?
giving.
Who's Clover?
I looked wonderful. Clover is the guy who is sent after Stow and Nightfall to get him in line by Calder. And he's the guy, he's the weapons master, and he's friends with Wonderful. And at the end, he kills Wonderful to save his own skin. And everyone's
Yes.
like, oh my god, you're so loyal. You're loyal to everyone. And he's like, yeah, until loyalties change. And then I change with them. And that's exactly what he does at the end. But Wonderful.
He did what he had to do. Wonderful was wonderful for the time he was on this earth. And I like Clover so much because if you also remember, his loyalties carry on shifting. And I find that kind of character so entertaining. Because also, it's not like this big moral shift. Like he's having this really hard time like thinking over these choices. He just seems so entertained and amused and making these decisions on a whim. Like he feels like a fox, and I love that kind of character. And I'm pretty sure he is the one who saves Rika earlier when they're trying to chase her down.
Caesar in
And then he lets her go, and he's like, "Go ahead, my lady." Like there's something so sexy to me about that kind of character, and I'm like, what are you gonna get up to? What's going through your head? Like maybe it's just survivability, I don't know, but I found that very, very entertaining.
Oh, thank you, Julia, because I was wondering, because Clover knew Wonderful, I wondered if he was part of who was leading that group in the Heroes? Three Trees? No, Three Trees died way before that.
He died in like the originals, didn't he?
Yeah. The guy had the group and Wonderful was his second anyway. I thought that he was maybe part of that band. Crow.
I think Clover's really young. I don't really know, like not crazy young. I want to say he's in his 30s, 40s, but I don't think he's that old.
30,
The way that he's like, he wants to sit down and drink all day, I thought he was older.
The reason I say that's young is because Jazal and them lot are like 60 something now. So compared to them,
Not anymore, because he died.
All right,
Sorry.
did you know Jazal died?
Sandra feels very strongly about this.
Julia said thoughts on Vic. I actually forgot about Vic because I also don't really care for Vic's perspective very much.
Yeah.
Who was Vic?
Vic is the one who's always like, oh, in the camps you can't have friends because you'll die. That's
I find it so funny that she was fucking this one guy. The next time we see her, they're running away and he stabs himself. And then we find out that she was going to betray him anyway. And I'm just like,
yeah.
what?
Because that's when we found out that she was actually part of the Inquisition. Do we know her father? I feel like
Yes.
her father is like a random like person who played a small part in the first trilogy.
I think her father, because remember how she was talking about how she was in some random camp, right? And they had to work and do all this other shit. Do you remember in the beginning when Glocta took this random guy that he was going to interview and it turned into a torture? Deb, you know where I'm going with this. And he was actually someone that Glocta used to work with, but Glocta was not listening. He was out for blood and like giving these false charges. And then
that guy come back at the end?
Well, no, that guy and his entire family we never hear from again, but they were sent off to some camp. Is this
the same guy where Glocta was like, they were talking about that person who used to be funny, and it was like, yeah, it was this guy, and it's the guy that he tortured. Is it that one?
No, it's the one that very early on he tortured and then immediately just got rid of because
so it's not the one
they needed someone to blame for something.
Yeah.
Like there was something they needed a confession, and he didn't care if it was the right person. He just
is it the one where he breaks into his house?
No, I don't know. All I remember is that guy was being tortured.
Kind of vaguely what they're just trying to remember. I don't guess it really matters which specific one it was, but it's not the one where West comes and they're talking about old times. Yeah, Ruse.
No,
okay,
I'm not talking. I don't think it was him.
No. I think the important part is that he was innocent. Like, I mean, not the only important part, but that he was not someone who should have been sent away, and his entire family sent away. And so she's got to have a lot of built up resentment and anger.
100%.
And that's, I'm assuming, going to come into play more in the further books.
I think the way that we saw how strategically babies. First we saw Deb's dog, then we see Becca's dog. I love doggies. Because we've seen how coldly and dismissively Glocta will do away with people he was allies with at one point as well. I don't feel like it's far off to assume that potentially like Vic might be another victim of like one of those things that Glocta did back then, and essentially like, because like she kind of talks about how bad her experience is and how she did have a Dan in her name. She was someone who had power, and I feel like for people like that who had power to fall, it would take something bigger to instigate that, and that's why I think it was because of Glocta. That's where my brain goes.
It's interesting because this is another example of people who've had something terrible done to them, and they end up like, why is she working for Glocta? Glocta's the reason why her family ended up the way that she did. Obviously, it's a safety thing because it's safer to work for the Inquisition than do something else. But still, like, I just don't think I could. I just don't think I could do it.
Sandra's a weak attempt to try and pet the dog.
I'm petting the dog. I feel like she's so big. Has she always been this big?
She's not that big.
Her head is bigger than yours.
Her head is like twice the size of yours.
Yes, it's huge.
Oh, what they saying? Oh, the beach.
Like,
no, not mean
way. Not in mean way.
Stop eating cushions.
Fair.
Yeah, that's true. He did.
And we've talked about how in these books sometimes the trauma makes you go darker. So I guess the trauma of being
Do we have any examples of where the trauma doesn't make you go darker, where the trauma makes you a better person?
Wait, isn't Shy married to an Eater dude and they have a happy family and it's all cute and dandy?
Yes. But
I was going to say,
wasn't that more of like a grand adventure with hijinks?
Her husband's a cannibal, so I don't know what to tell you there. Like, I feel like that would potentially be traumatic.
Yeah, okay.
The coochie is not the only thing he's eating, so I feel like that's a lot someone has to work through.
I was going to say us in real life, but that was not what we were talking about.
So
is it Broad who's been through a lot and is trying to get back in with his family and that?
I mean, he
stuff
is.
as well.
But Logan also tried that, and Craw also tried that, and
Yeah.
happened.
Like, I feel like I haven't seen him going too dark yet because of his trauma, but he's also not recovered from it. So there's 2 books to go.
At first, I was wondering whether Broad was Logan at the very beginning, because he goes into a blood rage like straight away.
I have a stupid question. Does Logan have children, or were they in this book?
Logan had children that died before the start of the series, and Logan potentially has a child with Pharaoh. Could that be Zuri?
Ooh.
That was why, because I was like, didn't he have children? Where are they? But I knew he had older children, but I meant new children. That we
There's
had
something
tonight.
so
We had a
funny.
theory that he might have had children with Pharaoh, but we haven't seen or heard of Pharaoh since.
There's something so funny about the idea of Logan's kid ending up serving Jazal's kid. Like, there's something so.
But Pharaoh was the one he had sex with in the caves.
Yes, it is, and that is what she called. I liked her. She wears the mask. She was the one that was sent to follow Glocta and then ended up becoming like an accomplice. Yeah, I would.
I don't think we get information about Zuri's family other than the fact that she says she has to go. Because most characters where we know the parents, he does eventually kind of give us who they're related to. Not always up front, but we eventually get that. And I tried to highlight it, but I don't have any notes for Zuri's family.
Does anyone feel like Logan's gonna? Sorry, Nikki, I do feel like Dogman's gonna die. He's kind of reaching the end of things. He's
just
been
like
around for a
Jazal.
long time. Just like Wonderful. We just like to see Becca cry.
Good
Like, I feel
characters don't survive in this world. They're just they either turn evil or
do
they
you
have
feel
to
like
go.
Logan? Do you feel like Logan's gonna come back in some way though? Because he's come back like.
I feel like he will be back in the next series.
I feel like he does have to come back, because what was the point in him coming back at the end of Red Country if he's not coming back?
And what was the point of him running away again?
I don't know. Also, it just reminded me that Shivers found him. Shivers is now one of my favorite characters.
He's baby.
I love him.
I really, you know how I said to you, rewind a few months. You know how I said that I wanted Shivers and Monza to meet each other again, not in like some cute romantic reunion way. I just wanted to see what would happen, right? And this was before Red Country. This was like after the end of like that initial Monza book, and I was like, oh, I just want to see it happen. And then the Red Country thing happened, and I was like, now I'm really curious because he's let go of that, a part of that rage, and now we're seeing another side to him, another kind of more wise, mature, but he has a kid potentially with Monza. I really want to see, like, I just want to see them interact. You need to give me that at least, Joe Abercrombie.
And I think she has to be relevant as well, right? Because she's got a kid, and this is about all of the kids.
And they're all of their kids are around the same age. So unless her kid is like, her kid's either going to come.
I think hers would still be a teenager at this point, because it's a few years after the end of the trilogy that she gets pregnant.
Yeah, I would imagine her kid's like maybe 20 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, because that would still be 10 years between the end of the trilogy and that one.
And depending on how the kid looks, like if he is, oh baby, if the kid is like partially a Northman, and let's say it's a boy and they're very tall or whatever, like that's just going to be a straight up giveaway. But then who's going to oppose Monza at this point, which is like such a rich, powerful
And they
woman?
all already know, don't they? They're already very suspicious that the baby's not cute.
Exactly. So I'm just like so curious as to like how her wealth and her child and everything are going to play into things, because that child is how she solidified her claim to her position.
Are you gonna, if he writes more after this, are you gonna reread it? All of it?
No.
Reread? Are you crazy?
We can
I
just
mean-
go back and watch these lives and remind ourselves.
I think I'm gonna unhaul. I'm definitely gonna unhaul Best Served Cold, Sharp Ends, and probably Red Country. I was gonna get rid of just all of the standalones, but I actually quite like the heroes.
I will buy Best Served Cold off of you because that's the one I really enjoyed, and I need a physical copy.
Do you not have any of them?
I think I have. Here's the thing, you know those collector's editions you could get. You totally can't see my shelf right now because I didn't turn on the light like an idiot. But I have like those kind of collector's editions of the original trilogy, and the rest of them I've ebooked it because I was like, I refuse to buy physical copies of these books because I know I'm not going to reread them, and I like to own books I'm going to reread.
I expected not to like this one, so I was going to get the next two from the library, and now I give it 5 stars, so I have to buy them.
Kai.
Okay.
I do agree with this. I love this.
Do you think Glocta's gonna die? Do you think we've got like a shared situation on our hands where like Glocta outlives literally everyone?
He is. He's such a wary and sweet father. I feel.
I'm gonna go check on Brie because she's definitely doing something suspicious, but I don't know whether it's with something that belongs to me or something that belongs to her. So I'm just gonna check.
Go ahead. We'll answer this claim in the meantime. I feel like I hope Glocta doesn't really die anytime soon, just because he is kind of entertaining and I feel like he deserves to have a good time, even though he's done some reprehensible things. But as Patricia just said, he's gone through a lot physically. The fact he's still moving and alive is actually pretty much insane.
I was kind of surprised, actually.
Like, how is he still operating? This is crazy. He's cracked. But no, I think he's gonna die 100%. Dogman, I can understand how he stayed alive so long, but I feel like this war is gonna wear him down. Go ahead, Sandra.
I know, I was just gonna say that I love the like little comment that he had been super worried for Saviene and like had just been a worried dad, and I feel like he's shit to everyone but her, and I love that. Love the trope with your own daughter. Not really.
I think it's interesting that he keeps telling her like you can't accept an offer from Ballant and Bilk, like whatever they offer you, don't take it, as though she can't be forced to accept an offer from Ballant and Bilk. Pretty much, like, is it Ballant and Bulk, Ballant and whatever the bank is called? Like, I feel like they don't really take no for an answer. Like, they strong arm you into it.
Well, Monza said no.
True, but I feel like Saviene being in the union, there's a lot more they can do to her to force her to accept.
But I think that's why this is what I'm so curious about. Those promissories or whatever the fuck those letters was that she got from that bank.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly she has ties to them. And so, again, going back to this whole thing about the owl and stuff like that, could Saviene already be doing some kind of business with buyers? I'm just so curious.
I'm actually really excited to read the next one, which is surprising.
Yeah. What's the next one called?
The trouble is the trouble with peace the second or the third.
Is the trouble with peace or wisdom of crows? But I think that's the last one.
It might be wisdom of crows.
It is the trouble with peace.
Okay, that's good too.
What peace? This did not end with peace. Like
the trouble with peace is that there is none. It doesn't last. That's probably the trouble with peace.
Very true.
3 is the wisdom of crowds.
Yeah.
It sounds like democracy to me.
I thought that it was called the wisdom of crows, like, no crowds. For like a year, so I was like calling it like a wisdom of crows, and I was just like, oh my god, it says crowds.
I'm actually sad that book 2 is only 500 pages.
That guy is
Hold on.
invested.
Can we talk about the covers for a real quick second?
Oh,
so, depending on which ones you have, the fact that the first one's like a flag with the sun, Union. The second one's a wolf. I feel like that's where we're going to kind of see the end of the Northern Strife. And then the third one has a... Yeah, the third one's a lion. We don't see anything with an owl, but I feel like that's where it's going to say like the owl is going to swoop in a victory at the end.
What
I
does your
think
have, Dab?
This is supposed to be always supposed to be a mystery.
Mine has a wolf on it on this one.
Oh,
Interesting.
It's like really, oh goodness,
Let me open up Goodreads and
creepy
check
wolf.
I just want to know: is Dogman going to war with, like, is it them people going to war with the Union, or is it Leo and his own little faction of the people on the council that don't like Orso going to war? Like, why does Leo have his own banner? Like, who is he representing at this point? Because he is actually to do with the Union, isn't he? Isn't he? What's he called? The Lord something? Now that he's been promoted? Wolf, Lion, and Owl on Nikki's edition.
Okay, interesting. Sorry, I was looking for the covers. So the cover for the second version one in the editions that Deb has it's like a lion on a sword. Like what the frick is it called? The holding bit, the holdy bar. What the fuck?
Yeah.
The spine of a sword. Oh my god, not me forgetting what that word is. I'm gonna hate myself for it.
Is there an animal on the cross piece too, or is that just design? I can't quite zoom in.
It could potentially look like a bird. Hold on, let me look. Click on this.
Julia
Wow, I love it.
Pommel.
It looks
yeah.
almost like a crane. Pommel, that's the word. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the second one.
Oh,
It's hard to tell if there's something intentionally there. Or,
Yeah,
or if
because
it's
now
just
with the
design.
order's offset. Like
Yeah.
they didn't do the sun, so I wonder.
What's
Lord
the
Governor,
third one?
that's what she's called. He's called.
Having a peep.
And the third one, oh, the third one has an owl for mine.
Interesting.
On a not an axe. What would that be called? Words are not going well.
No,
for
no,
me.
that looks like a war axe.
Did
to
you
me.
drink to them?
Coffee, just coffee.
Yeah, it is.
Interesting. I mean, I never know what version's coming when I request it from the library.
The fact that they made such a big difference in design decision for the other two is quite between these two.
It feels opposite because usually the American ones have more the like battle scene and the lots of stuff going on, and the UK ones are the more simple.
I have
It
no
feels
idea
like
what
we've
traditions.
swapped them.
I have no idea what traditions these are, to be honest.
The US ones are actually prettier fonts for these. Not that they're great. I think that the second and third one are better. I don't love the helmet one, but I like more the design.
I like to use ones more as well, but there was no way I'm not going to have them all in matching heights. So the UK one it was.
I appreciate Julia and Patricia trying to help me with my poor computing skills. Why use more word when less word do trick? Like,
I mean, what did you call it?
I don't know.
Holding thing.
Well, I say that, and then they both replied with one single word: handle, pommel. Like,
Yeah, it does suck that they don't match when the rest of them, aside from sharp ends, is also kind of on theme. So yeah, that one just sucks. This new trilogy.
Yeah.
I hate when they do that.
It's a new trilogy. That's completely different time period.
But it's like the designs are iconic at this point. It's like, and they might do because Robin Hobb is writing more Evelyn's books, but if they don't match, that's really wild.
Well, it's because the Robin Hobb ones, they've now put the US editions into kind of the format of the UK books. Like the covers match the UK ones, but I think they're different sizes and they're floppier. But we've adopted your cover for those, so maybe that means they would stick with that same design. I don't know.
Yeah, I say that I have a matching set, and I don't because I've got the old school covers for the first like 9 books. So
I have all of them in the UK. I don't have the Rain Wild. I never picked those up, but all the rest I got from Book Depository when that was a thing because I wanted the UK covers.
Now you can use Blackwells. They have for international shipping. I have US and UK editions.
Can you link the
Any
site to me?
international guys tried out Sci-Fi or Books, please? Because I think they do flat rate shipping, but I don't. Obviously, I'm not in a different country, so I can't check how much it is.
I do have affiliate code with both, so I want to use both, but they block my cards. I can't buy anything.
Wow.
Which is so like I tried to buy stuff there, and other people can, but there's like some problems with some cards in Norway, so I can't buy anything there.
I ordered from Sci-Fi and the shipping for me was £1.50 and it said it was flat rate, so no matter how much I ordered.
Yeah, I think that is flat rate in
That's
UK.
nice.
Yeah,
But then
that's
it's like, but it's not even that expensive for international because I could see that in the order I was not allowed to complete.
Is it also a flat rate for you? So even though it's more expensive?
No, it's not. It goes a bit up, but it's still not expensive compared to like Fairy Loot.
Yeah.
Aluminum crates.
Someone mentioned earlier that there was less grimacing in this book, and I did look. There were only 12 uses of the word grimace, which was impressive.
Was it
And
you?
the narrator pronounces it appropriately. There was no more grimace. Which I literally got to the end of the book. I'm like, how did this author stop using grimace? He loves that word because it sounded so normal. I didn't even notice the narrator was saying it anymore. I had to Google and go and find it in the audiobook to listen for it.
You did your research.
I did, because I got to the end of the book. I was very confused because that was like the one thing that grated on my nerves the most about this series.
I didn't know it was meant to be grimace and not grimace. I'm so sorry.
But it was so strongly the way he pronounced the different things.
I do hate this. My living room door is open, so I can't necessarily use the word I want to use, but I've said this before. What's wrong with the word that rhymes with dock? What's wrong with the word that rhymes with pick?
Well, I mean, that one does.
Why this?
That one rhymes with
Why
pick.
do we add this? This is insulting. No one wants to put your in. Oh no, I'm not finishing that sentence. Awful, disgusting.
Oh,
Awful.
you never heard or seen the word quinn before this book?
What the bloody hell is a quim?
I think I've heard it in the with the word quivering before it, but I don't know whether that was this book or something else.
I'm uneducated. I'm googling this.
It's like when I had that drunk live show with Kelsey and she didn't know what clunge was.
That is such an ugly word for it. At that word, just say punt. Like, why are you saying that? Sorry, my mom. I can't.
You can't say cunt in front of your mom. Come on.
Yeah,
it's kind of fun seeing you work around it.
I'm sure she's not like hearing you saying the word that rhymes with pick, the word that rhymes with punt, and she doesn't know what words you're actually.
This is what happens when you're first generation immigrants. You can get away with some shit. But no, I get if they're historically accurate, but I'm also just like, they sound ugly. So work with me.
Cream is indeed historically accurate. I love it.
I'm just trying to imagine old people, like old-fashioned dirty talk with that word. Like,
put your quim. No, sorry.
Stop, Sandra. Don't finish the sentence. That is not a soundbite you want in the annals of internet history.
That's Sandra's newest favorite word now. I'm going to hear it in every video.
I'm just going to see quim all the time.
To be honest, the way I learned about the word punt was I was like watching this YouTube video and it was like going over like different words and what they mean, and it was like the word punt. It would like, and then it was just showing all these artistic depictions of like nether regions. And it was like that Venus thing and all this other stuff, like, oh, the mystical and wonderful, and now it's used as a slur. And I was like, I've never heard this word before. Bear in mind, I was like 10 when I watched this show, so I wasn't really exposed to that. But I was just like, wow, that's a word. And then, you know, when you learn a word, like you don't understand something as a word, and then you actually learn that it's a word, and then you can't stop hearing it everywhere you go. That's what happened to me with that one.
Wow.
But
Same
imagine
thing with...
like,
Uh-huh.
No, I was just gonna say, like, imagine just instead of saying my vagina hurts, you just say my quim is hurting. I feel like that sounds better.
My quim is quaking.
It's shaking, quaking.
Her quim quivered.
Her quim is
Just
wet.
when I'm scared.
Her quim was moist.
My quim is quaking.
That should be your bio on Instagram. My quim
I
is
hate that
shaking.
you said that. I'm going to start using that so much when I'm talking about fictional characters now. My quim's quaking.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Dogman. My quim. Sorry.
He put his prick in my quim. I quivered.
No, this is where it goes back. This is going downhill.
Right, do we have anything else to add on this one before we wrap it up?
Except
Closing
Quim.
thoughts.
No.
Aside from unfortunate choices.
What do we think that the actual title represents? Like a little hatred.
Oh, could it represent how the small things that people are complaining about are going to grow into something, have grown into something much bigger?
That's exactly what I thought it meant. I couldn't think
That
of anything.
that felt like you were my English teacher and you asked me a question because I was talking and I had to make it up on the spot.
Why are the
me a
curtains
question
blue?
Why is your wall blue, Becca? Why?
Why is your wall blue? Why is it dark blue? What is it?
It reminds me of the ocean as it should be without the pollution of humanity.
No, that's the wrong answer. It's because you're depressed.
Oh,
Okay.
More anxious today, but the wall's always been blue.
More random not
What is
word knowledge.
fornicating?
Under consent.
Sex.
Okay. What is
Okay, I
fornicating?
well, that's the
Yeah, I got that did tell me, but it's just a word.
I do agree with this, and I feel like all of this is going to come down to the working class in the end. I wouldn't be surprised if literally everyone dies.
As you're comparing this to Game of Thrones, I was reading this alongside Les Mis, and
Yes,
the parallels were strong.
Yeah, like I also felt that like with the uprising of the lower classes and like
A lot of the conversations among the lower classes about the revolution and stuff were very much in parallel.
I think somebody said earlier that the title is a Baez quote for the next one. The trouble, I'm assuming that the end of the sentence is that it never lasts. The trouble with peace is that it never lasts.
Yeah, or like, you know, it's supposed to be peace between Leo and the other dude that just killed his uncle, but like it's not. So like maybe Leo's gonna try to like keep things peaceful.
I'm guessing that everything that's been built up, like all of the politics that are kind of relatively stable at this point, are all going to crumble. But also, like, something that's confusing me about Baez's actions is like, I always thought that it has always been in his best interest for the Union to be stable. So I'm unsure as to why he would want to create chaos in the Union of all places.
Unless he can sow it in some other way, because we don't know how long his plan is, and he, God knows how long he's been walking on this earth. He's literally a mage, so like his lifespan could be insane. So what to him might seem like a very short period of time could be like like people's lifetimes. I feel like he was definitely like, and I'm so curious about what was he doing while he was gone, because I feel like there's no way this man was just lazing about enjoying a nice long holiday of fuckery. He clearly was up to something. Sorry, my mom's praying like really loudly. I apologize. But yeah, like I think also we're not seeing a piece. Like, what is the actual piece? Because we've not ever seen a period of time where other people aren't being troubled in some way, shape, or form, and someone's not being subjugated by someone. So what actually is peace? There's no real peace happening. There's always someone being mad.
I mean,
the Weaver of Quims. Sorry.
No.
I can't get. I can't stop. I can't stop when we started. I'm sorry.
I wasn't able to find trouble with peace as a phrase in this book, but it's probably a paraphrase of something he said.
Giselle killing the... Yes, I think that she's potentially an eater.
Of Quims?
Potentially. We'll see how her relationship with Saviene develops. I don't think Saviene is an eater of Quims, though.
Disappointing.
I think Rick...
Well, actually, she is, because that was literally the first scene with her and her brother.
No, but she wasn't eating Quim. He doesn't have one.
Oh, true. He was eating them. That's correct. I got confused between what's what.
Unless she, just decides she's over men. Once you've been with your brother.
Can't sleep lower than that.
You need to change. some
Though
preferences.
Leo's really hot. Like, in my head.
Yeah,
anyway.
they said that. And he's blonde, which I don't have an issue against generally, but then he also has a beard, which is also blonde, and that's where I draw the line.
Okay, pause. But that guy who was like King Arthur or whatever, and I think he's British or something like that. Like he's from the UK. He's blonde and has a blonde beard, and he's hot as hell.
Are you talking about like actual King Arthur?
No. The guy, the actor. What's his face?
Oh, the actor. Because you was like that guy that was like King Arthur, who's like British. And I'm
Like that. No,
was
like the actor.
Do you know how the real King Arthur looked?
No. Hold on.
I
Let me
do
find
also
his name.
think King Arthur is supposedly blonde.
I can't breathe.
I will find his name. He's very attractive.
Just the blonde beard.
Charlie Hunnam.
Oh, Charlie Hunnam is hot, yeah.
And he's blonde.
He was Stephanie Meyer's fan casting for Carlisle.
Yeah, but then we got Peter, who is fine.
Why was Charlie Hunnam not Christian Grey?
Do you not like Peter?
No, I like him. I'm just saying. I said,
No,
why is
do you,
Charlie Hunnam-
Becca?
Oh.
Who?
Peter, but I can't even say his last name. Patelli?
The guy who's Carlisle.
Oh, Charlie Hunnam's hotter.
Yeah, but like, okay, then no one would have looked at Edward. No one would give a fuck about Robert Pattinson.
I
Love you,
don't-
babe, but no.
No. I'd like, the casting for that really upset me when I was like,
Which
Okay, but-
one? Of who?
Robert Pattinson
You don't like him?
and Kristen Stewart. I think it was terrible casting.
So sorry. So maybe the group killed Giselle, not Baez. Okay, I see what you're saying. Like the group
Oh,
of.
like sorry. Okay.
Thank you, Liz. I should have just looked at the comments. I'm so sorry. Hit me
But the
with the
thing is,
facts.
he has a very close. My quick Google. He has a very close cropped beard, which looks good. The people in this book, I don't picture them have the best grooming, the nicest beards to begin with. I mean, I know we're talking about the kind of privileged few among them, but I still feel like they're not grooming that much.
But they are
I'm just
rich.
looking
They
at that
have
with one
serve
beard.
as a groom dam.
True.
And they're crims.
Yeah.
Has to be fan art.
Did you guys see the that was good. Did you guys see the trailer for I don't even know what it's called.
Oh, yeah.
Colleen Hoover. Colleen Hoover.
Oh,
Don't
yeah.
even. Don't even. I've not read that book. I refuse to ever read that book. And
I haven't read it either, but I watched the trailer.
I was.
So he looks like Nikolai in Shadow and Bone.
Yeah, but he has a beard that he doesn't have in any of this fan art.
Okay,
Well,
but he's still cute.
that's just
I
like
still
somebody
like him.
drew that guy that I just showed you a picture of.
Yeah.
He looks like Tamlin.
Yeah.
Jensen Ackles.
Don't. He's so hot. He's so hot. Like he's so hot. Supernatural.
I've seen some
forever.
pretty cool fan art of Rika.
Hit me. I think like on the official.
Wow.
I need to
How
log
much
off.
did you drink?
One. She's so cute. I love her.
Like
Queen.
her.
She looked like a child.
And she acts like it.
The one that
Yeah, but she had sex. She can't be a child.
she's 20 something.
20.
In the picture, she looks like she was 8. She looks like a child. She looks like she's 13.
I think
Okay,
he's
no,
just
that's
really small. Like,
She is very small.
hold on. The one on the official wiki I think I saw was really cute of her.
she looks like what's the woman called who plays Luna Lovegood? Like the face.
I see what you're saying. First.
But she looks like the girl from Brave.
So this one from fandom, whoever made this, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, I like that.
And she looks her age. She doesn't look like a child. Like
Yeah.
she looks like a woman.
The one guy
Last
that
one back a
had a
soul.
beard but no mustache. I'd rather a beard with no mustache than a mustache with no beard.
A beard with no mustache.
I'd rather have a beard with no mustache than a
Why
mustache.
don't you only have beard hair?
That's disgusting.
Yeah, but like some people have it like really like finely like sculpted around the edge.
That's disgusting.
Wow.
A goatee, I could get behind in some situations. But this entire thing, get out. Disgusting. Vile.
Fight.
Be a real man and grow a mustache.
Or do
I'm
neither.
also biased because I love mustaches.
What? Right, we need to leave because you're going off the rails.
You're going off the rails.
Me, I love mustaches. You're going off the rails.
As if we haven't been off the rails for quite some time already.
I mean, that's fair.
I think we can blame it on Saf anyway.
Why are we blaming me? What did I even do? All I did was exist. I'm
You
glad.
showed up.
Thank you, everyone, for coming with us today on this journey to talk about A Little Hatred. Becca, do you want to close out the live show with talk of the next one?
Oh, yeah. So the next one is going to be in July. Looking at my calendar, I would estimate the 14th of July. I can tell you it's not going to be after that because I'm going to be in California. So I'm not doing it.
14th of July.
I'll be in California the whole month of July. As
Yeah.
of
Are you meeting Dab?
Well, Deb's in LA and I'm going to San Diego, so I don't think they're that close.
Get your ass over to San Diego. Sorry.
Sandra's Quim has had enough. Sandra's Quim has had enough. But yeah, we will see you in a couple of months to...
Wait, who's hosting? Is it me?
Probably.
Okay.
Love that question. But yeah, I will see you all soon. I'm waiting for Zaf to press the button.
Oh.
We're just gonna wait. She was just gonna